Okay, Kelly, you got to explain this to me. You let them all walk? You let them all walk. How the hell are we going to replace 89 goals and 208 points next season? You let everyone go. Well, there's really no way to, replace Marchessault or everybody that walked in free agency. But we can recreate them. We can recreate them in the aggregate. Well, July 1st has come and gone. NHL free agency has opened and has been an absolute disaster for the Golden Knights. You can forgive the Moneyball reference there, but that's really how this offseason kicked off, and this is really how free agency started. Sure, it wasn't Johnny Damon, but Jonathan Marchessault is a big fish in the hockey world, and he's even a bigger fish now. He's also a much richer fish. His check's not being cut by Bill Foley anymore. It's being cut somewhere else. But I guess here we are to break down one of the most painful days since not a 5-minute major Game 7 and since Game 5 of the 2018 Stanley Cup Final. July 1st, 2024 will go down as one of the darkest days in Golden Knights history, as basically the team will never be the same. You may as well lead off with the worst. Let's lead off with all the subtractions and sit down because it's a long one. I had to write them all down. First, the one that we all were afraid of, that we wanted to avoid, but we kind of saw coming for a while. Jonathan Marchessault is now a member of the Nashville Predators, signing a 5-year, $5.5 million fully no-move protected contract to go to the East Coast. This is the one that definitely pained me the most when I came across the wires on the first, because there was inklings that it might happen. The Knights and Marchessault had all season to get a contract extension together, and then they had all off season to get one together. And it sounded like they had something coming together. And then for one reason or another, it just never worked out. Whatever the reason, the heart of the shoes, Marchessault is now a member of the Nashville Predators. Second player that we've got to talk about is another fan favorite, an original misfit in Will Carrier. He signed a 6-year, $2 million extension to go play for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this one still sucks because Carrier is one of those players where it's will he, won't he this year. He's a great player when he's healthy, but for the last 2 years, he hasn't been very healthy. So the fact that the Hurricanes threw 6 years of term at $2 million at him, I'll give him credit where credit's due. He's definitely earned the money. It's just a bummer that we'll no longer have him on that line with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar as what would possibly be the greatest fourth line in all of hockey. Hurts to break it up, but this one I kind of saw coming. Two more free agents walking that we all definitely saw coming was Anthony Mantha and Alec Martinez, both of which going their separate ways from the Golden Knights. Mantha going a 1-year, $3.5 million to the Calgary Flames, and Alec Martinez going to the Blackhawks for 1 year at $4 million. The fact that the Blackhawks are willing to pay 3-time Cup champion Alec Martinez $4 million a year just proves that he was going to be priced out of Vegas anyway. Plus, his replacement in Noah Hanifin had already inked an extension with the Knights. So I had seen this one coming since the trade deadline. Another move that I saw coming even after the draft was Jiri Patera signing a 2-year league min contract with the Canucks. He'd been pretty much effectively replaced, not necessarily by talent, but by time. Now, we got Akira Schmid in the Paul Cotter trade on draft day, which when we saw that he was going to be the number one in Henderson, that kind of left Patera out of a job, so we didn't tender him a qualifying offer as a franchise, and he's now in Vancouver, probably to be their AHL starter. The real surprise, the player that I knew was gone as soon as we traded for Tomas Hertl, and this is basically a straight upgrade at this position, but it hurts to see him go. However, hockey writers say this is one of the worst contracts that was signed on all of July 1st, and that was the contract the Seattle Kraken gave to Chandler Stevenson. Now, I'm going to pull up my script here to make sure I get this right because I'm convinced my eyes are going to pop out of my head cartoon style when I read this number. Seattle Kraken gave Chandler Stevenson, whom the Knights acquired for a 4th-round pick, 7 years by $6.25 million a year. He's one of the highest-paid players that got anything over free agency, and it's insanity. Like, he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but that's a big price to pay for who is effectively going to be your second line center. And I'm not mad at any of these players. This amount of money is generational and life-changing. So, good on them for securing money that they rightly earned by being Stanley Cup champions 2 years ago. But still hurts to see them go. Hey, hold on. I didn't just make subtractions. I made some additions, too. You got to give me some credit. I guess, yeah, there were a handful of signings made. Not a lot of them off the board. Some of them a little out there, and some of them I have a great deal of issue with, but we'll get there. First signing was tendering qualifying offers to restricted free agents, primarily those being Pavel Dorofeyev getting 2 years at 1.83 and Kaden Korczak getting 2 years at $825,000. Both of those are good signings. Both of those lock down good talents. Dorofeyev's definitely going to be on the opening night roster, and Korczak is probably second up on injuries. So he's a good player. He played well. They both played really well in the NHL last year. So those make sense. Knights also extended a qualifying offer to Ivan Morozov over in the KHL. He's not expected to sign his qualifying offer, but what it does is it allows the Knights to retain his rights. But those were all the RFAs that we bothered to do anything with. A lot of them walked. UFA signings, on the other hand, I've got questions. The Knights signed a handful of AHL filler, AHL depth players like Zach Aston Reese and a couple of others to kind of be two-way guys, mostly depth and Henderson, and a little bit of just in case some players get hurt, since it's very likely that players like Brisson and Ronberg and Dorofeyev are all going to be on the opening night roster. Never hurts to have some depth in the background. One of the signings that makes absolutely no sense to me is the Knights offering Victor Olofsson a contract. Now, Victor Olofsson isn't much of a big name. He was a decently sized name when Jack Eichel was a member of the Sabres, and now he's a member of the Knights, and so is Olofsson. He was good. He was okay. He was pretty good 2 years ago on a line with Tage Thompson, and then he was really bad last year on a line with Tage Thompson, 82 games, only mustering 16 points. So there's that. But I'm going to trust the process. Maybe he's a reclamation project, similar to what Alexander Holtz is. Maybe he'll get rehabbed and become a great player like William Karlsson or Brett Howden or Chandler Stevenson or Michael Amadio. Damn, we really do have a reputation of rehabbing players. The real signing that got me really confused is the signing of goaltender Ilya Samsonov. Now, it's no secret that this channel was inspired by Steve Dangle and his LFR series, and I'm a big fan of his work, and if he ever watches this, hi Steve. But Ilya Samsonov was a Leaf last year. He wasn't great. He was very much not great. He had one of the worst goals save above expected ratings, I think he gave up 5.5 goals above expected last year, which put him 61st out of 65 or something. And he had like the 4th worst save percentage of all qualifying goalies last year. And so what's he going to do? He's going to sign with Vegas. And he's going to fill the spot of Logan Thompson, who was an all-star and who won a couple of playoff games on a league min contract. Now, this signing would make sense in only one way, if Samsonov also signed for league min. But he didn't. He signed for $1.8 million a year for 1 year. Thus, when we get to next offseason, we're going to have to do this all again because both the goalies will be UFA, Hill and Samsonov. But let's never have that thought. The Golden Knights are spending 2.5 times what they would have spent on Logan Thompson if they hadn't just agreed to trade him when he asked for a trade. We could have told him, hey, sit behind Hill for 1 more year, and we'll decide if we're going to make you the number 1 over Hill. But no, we traded him to Washington, used the pick we got from him to draft Pavel Moisevich, which is interesting, but 2.5 times more for a goalie that isn't even half the caliber of a goalie Logan Thompson is one of the most head-scratching moves that the Golden Knights and Kelly McCrimmon have made this entire free agency season. And with that, that's all the additions. That's it. It's really putting a lot of trust in the farm this year. And I have no idea what is going to happen. I don't know what the opening night roster is going to look like. I don't know who's going to play with who. And that's not going to get clear until the start of training camp, which is months from now. One thing that is interesting is the Golden Knights still have $1.2 million in cap space available, and that includes some of those funky two-way deals that haven't been sorted out yet. So it actually may wind up being more like 1.8 when it's all said and done. So are they going to make another move? There's a lot of smoke, but no fire about Mitch Marner or some players out of Anaheim. But this is all be by trade. There's been a thing where Knights players that leave Vegas have suddenly regressed massively. Nick Suzuki, Eric Brandstrom, Alex Tuck, Peyton Krebs, Max Pacioretty, Paul Stastny, Nate Schmidt, just to name a few. Oh, I can't believe I named that many off the top of my head. I didn't even plan this bit. Anyway, did the Golden Knights get better? Maybe. Only time will tell. But that extra cap space is enticing. And so we'll see what the front office does, because they always do something and we're always in on everything. And so I don't think the summer is over quite yet, but it's definitely starting to wind down. So yeah, a lot of fan favorites are gone. Jonathan Marchessault comes back to the Fortress for the first time on the last home game of the year. What a coincidence, on April 12th. And there's going to be a lot of tribute videos this coming season. There's going to be at least 6 of them. And so it's going to be a tough season. This is a transitional period for the Knights. They went from being grizzled veteran cup champions. Now they're getting younger. They're getting younger and faster. Brisson making his NHL regular debut. Dorofeev getting more contribution. Ronberg maybe becoming a regular NHLer. Some looks for more guys in the AHL like Brabennik and Demek and Grigory Denisenko. It could be interesting, but I'm going to put a big caveat on this, and by only saying it could be interesting, because things are still subject to change. There's like 3 roster spots open for camp, and we're going to see who fills those roster spots. But it's not fair to speculate about something that's going to happen in September and talk about it in July. So I'm just going to let it be, and I'm going to let the powers that be decide. Free agency has not been good to the Golden Knights, and for the first time in 7 years, the team did get worse on July 1st. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.